Hello everyone, and welcome to another amazing episode of The Joy of Being for busy working mums and women in business and beyond who are seeking to unplug from their worries and overwhelm to light up with insights and joy. I am Marina Pearson, your host, mum and effortless lifestyle coach. On this week's episode, we're doing things slightly differently. Welcome to the guest episode, where I support a special and busy mum in business and beyond to get insight into an area of her life that she feels stuck in. And today I've got some amazing news. You can now order your very own version of the Joy of Being book, supporting hardworking mums to stress less and live more. If you're the type of mum who is struggling with the burdens of motherhood or modern day life, then this will be a perfect book for you. If you're curious, you want to know more, and you want to see what's up with that book, you can do so at www.marinapearson.com/order. On today's show, we have the beautiful Emma Burns. Emma is a colleague and a reflexologist as well as a coach. She's also a beautiful human being that lives in Wales that wants to help mums in disadvantaged areas. So she came on today for us to talk about how she was feeling in terms of money, in terms of her relationship with her parents, and in terms of how she feels when she's being a mum, feels like she can't provide and worries a lot about that. During our conversation, we talked about all of the things that she felt were making her worried or upset, and it was beautiful to see that over time she got really settled down and really quiet and got to see quite a few new things that she hadn't done so before. Her resilience, her ability to know what to do, so that those moments where she does worry about how she's going to put food on the table, she knows that she's actually always got the answer. So if you do worry a lot about your kids, if you worry about money, if you're constantly worried about getting it wrong as a mum, then this is going to be a great episode for you. But anyway, regardless of that, just being able to see how someone transforms in just a gentle conversation, being guided by someone else to get them to see where their experience is really coming from, is always an amazing opportunity to learn and grow. Enjoy. So on today's show, I have the beautiful Emma Burns. Emma, I've seen you on Facebook and then dialoguing with people and then people that I know, and then Laurie invited me to her page or Facebook group, and there you were. So here we are. And I guess I reached out to you because I felt like maybe there was something that I could support you with, and then it sort of turned into, well, how about it could be, the coaching guest special that I do every month on the podcast, The Joy of Being. So welcome, Emma. Lovely to have you.
Hello. Oh, pleasure. Thank you.
So what would you love to focus on today that would make a really big difference to you for you to get more clarity on?
I think a lot of what I've been kind of going through lately has been, I'm trying to think of the best way to word it, actually. I felt, particularly very recently, I kind of feel that I am going through some form of transition. And I often get like this when I'm going through it, like it's a kind of two, backwards and forwards kind of thing, where I'm not sure what to expect or what have you, but very similar to how I put in the live I did yesterday in Laurie's group, was that I'm feeling a little bit, I felt a little bit lost lately, and I'm not being very sure. Been feeling quite guilty then, I've been feeling quite guilty as my role as a mother, as a wife, as a reflexologist. I've been taking things quite personally because, for us in our situation, our family situation, we've just had a few difficulties in the last couple of years where it's involved cash flow, where cash flow has been quite difficult, and it's just gone more and more difficult as the years have progressed. And it's that side of things that I'm noticing I'm taking personally about what I'm doing. And that's why what I'm often looking at quite a lot of the time is that I think that when I haven't had clients or a certain amount of clients, that it's something personally to do with me and what I do, as opposed to what's actually going on. Am I making any sense here?
So let me just see if I've understood this correctly. I feel like there are two things going on. Mm-hmm. There's the transition piece, which I don't know if it has any relevance to the financial piece. And then there was a guilt piece. Now, the guilt as a mum, feeling lost, Has that got anything to do with the financial side? And if so, could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think what I'm noticing is that there's always been, for me, it always feels like I've had like a trigger, if you want to word it like that, with money. So like a kind of how I mentioned previously was that in some ways I see money as almost like a phobia.
And so what does that mean to you? How do you, like, what's your experience around money?
My experience around money is that it's there 1 minute and then it's literally gone the next, and then it's there 1 minute and then it's literally gone the next. And I know that's kind of how, in a lot of ways, cash will go. You know, you have it, you need to, obviously you're going to have expenditures and what have you. But what I found is that particularly when I was growing up, with my parents, bless them, you know, they did their absolute best in many ways, but they were so worried and concerned and frustrated and worrying about money all of the time. I just remember it being quite intense around me. And I remember things happening where it meant that the money that we didn't have meant that we lost our home. And I remember, you know, when I found out that we'd lost our home, it was literally, I mean, at this point I was 18, so I wasn't a small kid at this point. I was 18, I was in the sixth form. So I'd gone back to school for further education. So in the evenings I did cleaning so I could earn some money for myself. And I remember coming home and I went into the living room. My parents were my mum was crying, and she just said to me, "You need to pack all your things. We've got to get out of the house by tomorrow." And I won't go into too much detail about that because that could take a while. But
so, what's your internal experience around money? Because I understand that money comes in, it goes out, money comes in. But what does that conjure up for you inside? Like, is it stressful? Is it
it feels stressful. I've always felt that that I've kind of held this thing inside me that I'm just not somebody who can manage money well. I'm not, like, almost as if like it's like I've convinced myself it's something that's genetic, you know. And I think what happens is certain things have happened in my experience as being a parent, which isn't the same at all as what I've experienced as a child, but it's triggered me into assuming the same things are going to happen.
So like what? That you'll lose the house?
That we'll lose our house, and that I can't afford to feed the kids. I mean, I was never in a position where we never had any food or anything growing up, but I just remember my parents, you know, they used to drink a lot when I was younger. And I, to be honest, half of the reason why they drank a lot was because they were trying to run away from the problems they were having. And I remember at the time being 18, not very young, but not very old either, and just thinking, if you knew we were going to lose the house, you shouldn't have been going out drinking. And I just took things really personally, and I really laid into my parents about the situation we were in. And I just said, you know, you are to blame for this. And unfortunately, both my parents died quite young. My dad died not very long after that happened. It was a couple of years later. And the difference between, the thing is at the time I didn't see this. It's only now as an adult. Once we lost the house and we got rehomed and what have you, the difference in both of my parents changed dramatically. They weren't as stressed. I never heard them argue anymore. They still drank in the evenings, but they drank at home. But it wasn't the same as what it was. And their connection with each other was stronger. But very shortly after that, my dad died of a massive brain hemorrhage. So just as they were starting to enjoy life and start to let go of some of the things that they'd held on to for so many years, he died. And
what I'm not understanding quite right now is, why is that relevant to where you're sitting right now?
I think the reason why it feels like it's relevant is because, unfortunately, in the last couple of years, my husband hasn't been very well. And a lot of the difficulties he's been struggling with, both physically and mentally, has been around money. So the loss of money that we've had.
Right, but I'm still not understanding what is the relevance of your parents' situation and your situation. Like, why are they even connected? Like, why is there such an important connection for you with this? Because what I'm hearing is that this was their story and somehow that story is going to translate into my story. That's what I. Is that your fear?
Yeah, that's kind of
That's the fear, right? Right, cool. That's kind of what I wanted to understand. So it's like that happened to them, and I'm just really fearful that that will happen to me.
Yeah.
Got it. So you mentioned guilt, and I'm not sure how this all fits in. You mentioned guilt as a mum. Has this got anything to do with what we're talking about, or was that
just because the stress, because it plays on my mind and I get stressed, then I end up snapping and just being a mum, doing things that mums do get snappy.
Oh yeah, I know.
Regardless of this, so I'm not saying it's just about that, but I notice that particularly when those things are on my mind and I'm paying them a lot of attention, I then don't turn it at the best for my children.
Right,
and then,
understood. So this looks really real for you.
Yeah.
This situation looks really real. It looks like it's going to happen to you too. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
And then this transition thing, is that relevant to this conversation? Was that just something that you wanted to, because you're talking about you're in transition. Now, I don't know whether that was relevant to what we're talking about here.
It might. To be honest, I don't know. I'm just noticing that at the moment I often feel like this when it becomes a bit more clearer to me, when something's becoming more clearer.
So interestingly enough, right, we, my, I don't know what comes to mind is the sense of like history, right? History, his story, somebody else's story.
Yeah.
Past doesn't exist, right? But we are amazing human beings and we tend to like bring the past into the present and then think that somehow it's got something to do with this future that hasn't even like happened yet, right? Like it's incredible. We have this capacity to imagine ourselves into situations that haven't even happened yet, right? Based on something that happened to somebody else, even.
Yeah, something that hasn't even happened, or has happened, but it was
right. But to somebody else, like it's not even anything to do with you.
No. I mean, the thing is sometimes I don't know if I relive it because I feel guilty now. Because when I say the guilt, to be honest, a lot of the guilt often comes from the place I'm in now as a parent to how I was when my parents were going through it and the way that I assumed I knew better.
I know, it's like
makes sense. Like, and I was horrible. I was absolutely horrible to them. And the things I said, I mean, a lot of it was just me in fear at the time. But I remember thinking really horrible things like, I would never put my children through all of this, and I would never do that. And I would, I was doing that typical hypothetical mother. This.
Oh yeah, I've done that too. Like, with really
my children will never do this, and I will never do that, and I'll never raise my voice, and I'll never. But at the time, it wasn't just like little nitpicky things. I was really angry with them, and I think I'm absolutely. I've made peace a lot with them both passing very young, and. But, the process of it was letting go of those things. But I was letting go of those things to them because I knew they didn't do any harm to me. None of it was intentional. None of it. It was just them trying to figure out life. And that's just what happened. And it worked out absolutely fine, to be perfectly honest, in the end. And the thing is I know that. I knew that actually out of all of it, not at any point was I not safe, because I can see that now. But it feels different, me seeing that now as a parent, and then that overwhelming me that this is something that might happen to my children. That is where it's bothered me most. Does that make any sense?
Well, it does, if you think that your feelings are coming from something that hasn't even happened yet.
Yeah. And I know it hasn't.
But here's the interesting thing. When we say we know, we can know that intellectually, but we haven't seen something to help us move through it, right? There's a difference between the know in the intellect, which I know. There's a sort of energy towards that, which is I know, versus I see, and there is knowing.
Yeah, that's it, and that's the bit that's annoyed me. I was like to say different words.
I want to see through this. I don't know, what comes to mind is really interesting. So there's a chapter in my book which is called Breaking Away from the Money Trap. And one of the things that I talked about in that story I had was this moment where I had a massive epiphany around money. So my situation is very different to yours, but it's relevant in the sense of the context. So my dad was somebody who was very scrupulous with his money. He invested very wisely and then found it very, very hard to spend it or to let go of it, right? So there was this willingness to want to, but then when it came to actually doing it, he would get really tight, really insecure, and then basically go, no, I'm not going to. So I'll give you an example. So there was one Easter where he said to me, oh, you're going to come to ski, blah, blah, blah. And I said, like, I can't. I don't have the money. If you want to invite me, then that's not a problem. He's like, fine. That's fine. I really want to see you. So everything's great. Go there. And the next day, I say, yeah, I need some money to go to ski. And he goes, well, why didn't you bring any of your own? Blah, blah, blah. And so there was this constant, like, I want to, but I can't, like constant. I can't. So I wasn't aware that when I inherited the money, it was a massive, it looked to me like a huge burden. I used to go into massive sweats to spend anything. Right? And I'm like, oh my God, like I'm sweating. This is a burden for me. This is not something that I'm enjoying. And I was in that for like 2 to 3 years, reliving my dad's story that I didn't even know that I was reliving.
Yeah.
And it was this amazing epiphany where I heard in a session, and the epiphany was, you're living your dad's story, it's not yours. And that was a major revelation to me because I thought I was living my own story. But I just borrowed my dad's for a while. And what then happened was this massive amount of space. I felt like a whole bunch of thinking had just dropped away. And there was this space that had been created. And in that space, I heard another voice which said, what's your story going to be? What story would you like to tell about money? How would you love it to be? What new story would you love to create that isn't based on anything other than joy? So where are you right now, Emma?
What I'm noticing is, I think the reason why I've not seen the joy or felt the joy is because I'm still looking outside.
You're still looking what?
I'm still looking outside of myself.
Beautiful. Breathe.
And I find that when I get really, really, really up in looking outside of myself, I start to do things that are not me. I keep thinking it's an offence to others because I'm trying to follow what they're teaching me, but it isn't me. So then I start feeling guilty again because I'm thinking, well, I've asked this person for help, like I'm trying to follow this program or this challenge, and it's usually challenges where it's very, very intense, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't. It's not that I can't do it, it's just whilst I'm doing it I feel really, really like I feel uncomfortable. But then because in that moment I'm searching so much out of myself, it leads me then to think that that's when I get more caught up in thoughts about whether I can trust myself, whether I can trust my own judgments, whether I can, because I'm looking around and thinking everybody else is doing it like this and it's working for them. And it's not that it's a case of it working or not. It's just not what I'm connected to at all because I have the answers within me. I'm just not listening to them.
Well, that's a really great insight. Oh my God, like the cool thing is though that our body is so wise beyond what we can even comprehend. Those moments where you feel insecure, just letting you know that you're just looking in the wrong direction, right?
Yeah.
What you've just been talking about. They're not anything to do with you or how you are and what you are or anything like that. They're just letting you know that you've just gone onto the rumble strips of the road and you just need to come back to the center again. They're there to wake us up. There are alarm systems to let us know that we've just gone off course.
Yeah.
But they say nothing about who you are, what you're about, and what you're capable of. That's just a little misunderstanding that we all have.
Yeah, definitely. And it just so happened that within that space where I noticed I was going off track again in those kind of directions. There was just things that were happening that were going to happen anyway. Probably they needed to happen because there was this, there wasn't anything that personal, but at the time I just took it very personal because it did revolve around elements of money. I know the kids being sick and me being sick and having to cancel people. You know what it's like being self-employed. It's not nice having to jig people around, and it was just in those moments I find that the more off track I go, the more then I will end up being sick. And it's all happening for good reason, as opposed to the exact opposite of what I might be seeing in that moment.
And it's like the story, like I don't know if you've heard it. It gets bandied around, I guess, through the community. But the guy who's totally and utterly inebriated and goes out and looks for the keys underneath the lamppost.
Yeah.
Comes along and says, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm looking for my keys." And they're like, "Well, where did you last see them?" "Oh, over there in the dark." "What are you doing down there?" "Oh, it's lighter here, right?" So it's the most normal thing in the world from when we get caught up in our own thinking to think that it's got something to do with the outside world. But I love the fact that you've seen this for yourself, Emma, that you have this capacity to see and listen. You've just shown me that. You've just illustrated that very, very clearly, that you do listen because you've just seen something. So you do listen.
I do listen. I think what has been going on it's been literally probably about 3 weeks where I felt really, really unsettled and quite cross and angry and frustrated and sad and blah, 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 was that I was seeing it then. I was just refusing to pay any attention to it. That is why it was so frustrating.
We can notice, right? Notice and then go, nope, I'm over here.
Yeah. It was literally like that's what I mean. I was not trusting myself. It was okay, and then it was like I kept thinking that it was ego screaming louder at the time, that because I was hearing, "You're not good enough, you're not this," but it wasn't that at all. Really, it was that I knew, and I just refused to accept that I did know what was right for me. I did know that what I was doing was absolutely fine the way I was doing it, and that the minute I went off track of that, well, everything went off track of it. It was like the carriage came off the rails, and then everything fell out of it. It was just, and I noticed that since in the last couple of years, in particular, regardless of anything that's gone on in my family life, where it has been very complicated, like when I'm not battling with my own wisdom, I don't need it to be any different. It's only when I'm battling with my own intellect, intelligence, wisdom, all of that's when the same thing is a million times harder. That's a slight exaggeration in some respects, but that's how it feels at the time, is that it in that moment, it feels like I need something to change in order to change how I feel. And yet I don't. When I really have a minute to look at what's going on, I think I don't need anything categorically to change.
It says there's nobody like you. So I bought this snow globe to remind me that we all have this, and that we're either in life or in our heads. It's either one or the other. There's nowhere else we can be. Isn't that a relief, though, to know that we're either in the present moment or we're not, and that's all that's ever going on? Because you're hooked up, connected to the same wisdom, the same source of intelligence as everything. As the most, like in nature, the universal intelligence of nature. You have that, in the sense that you've got that connection to it. You are made of that, even. You're made of that intelligence. You're made of that. We're just universal intelligence in form. The only thing that ever gets in the way of us seeing how we can create more money or how we can create something else is the thinking that gets in the way. And that's it. That's really all that's all that's ever going on. I can give you an example. So I shared in the group yesterday, didn't I, about this balcony that I have here in my villa. And I've got these cats that we brought in because my ex-partner wanted to rescue them, and I said yes. And so they've been taking over the balcony. I haven't really wanted to go in there, and I have been wanting to do something with it, and then it's like, oh, but the cats are still there, and I had so much thinking going on around it, right? And then yesterday, I had my next door neighbors, they moved house, and they needed someone to look after their really beautiful table. And I said, look, I will take it, not a problem. And then going, oh, it is a problem. What am I going to do with the cats? Oh my God, where am I going to put them? Oh my God, maybe I should just tell them not to bring the table over. And we get blah, 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 blah. And then I was like, no, I've committed to this. Let's do this. You know, the most interesting thing, it really wasn't a big deal. Like they came, I cleaned the area. Cats are in one part. We've got a sofa there now. We've got like a beautiful table, and it's amazing. Like I can inhabit now. I can go into the balcony and actually hang out in it. And it's an incredible balcony. I've had that sitting there for a year and a half.
Oh, wow.
Right. I haven't been seeing the situation very clearly at all. And I've had loads of thinking around it. Now, I just took one step in the direction that was frightening me. One step. And I've realized that any time we feel some sort of resistance, it isn't a sign to step back.
Yeah.
It's a sign to step forward into the very thing that we are resisting. And so I went, right, I know how this works. Anytime that I felt any kind of resistance, what do I do? Well, I either step back and believe that feeling is letting me know that I shouldn't take that step forward, which isn't true. Or I can go, I'm going to do the very thing that I'm resisting and see what happens. And it literally is, well, that wasn't so difficult, was it?
Yeah.
What was difficult was like all the thinking I had about it. Yeah. So I've seen this time and time again, Emma, that the very thing that we resist is the very thing we need to do and take action and step through and on. Right? So that piece, once again, is so simple. Oh. 1 second. Let me just. Yeah, so I don't know if that's helped. Does that help?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think I don't know if the transitional thing is that it's felt as though, sorry, there's trains going past.
Don't worry, my alarm bell, my front doorbell just went, so we're all good.
It's going now, it's going. But I don't know if you can, I can hear you okay, but I don't know if you can hear me.
No, I can hear you really well.
I noticed that because this is something that's come up a lot, obviously, and the more I've become more aware of, again, I was thinking more about the logistics of it, that I'm feeling more conscious that the transition is that these things have been happening again more and more and more to help me to see, because I was ignoring it and pushing it away, the resistance of trying to believe it, beliefs or not really, because beliefs change, but like I just wouldn't trust myself. And a lot of it was because I just thought it was all about me not being trustworthy with money, and that I was just really crap with it, and that I'm winging it all the time.
Who isn't, by the way?
Exactly, I know, and I'm okay with that to some degree. And when I really have a minute to be peaceful and just breathe, and I go for my walks and stuff, and when I have that, like you were saying in your live the other day about you slowing down and going for more walks and spending time with friends. When I do that, I am more me than I ever am, and I don't see why I can't integrate my work into things like that. It doesn't make sense for me not to, yet somehow I've led myself to believe I can't do it like that, and it's just not true. And
you can do it any way you want, and
exactly,
it's all one big experiment anyway, right?
Yeah,
one big experiment. So speaking to this, a very tangible example is I've been sitting with, I don't know what my next move is, in terms of, I've got this online course called Back to Balance in 6 weeks for mums, right? And I've been sitting with it because we ran the course and it was like, okay, that did really well. Had some amazing testimonials and it's had an impact. And I'm like, okay, good, fine, right. Well, the usual Marina thing would be, okay, we've run it, that's it, not going to promote it anymore. Well, that seems pretty stupid. Anyway, so I've been sitting with it going, okay, now what? Well, it needs distribution. Okay, I'm just going to sit. So I haven't really been acting. I haven't really been doing much. I've just been kind of walking and getting myself into a new relationship, and I've just been really enjoying my life, right? And then lo and behold, as I was not thinking about anything in particular and listening to the amazing Dr. Bill Pettit, and as my mind was really calm and I was driving to see the new man, oh my God, the answer arrived in the form of collaborating with my mental health rocks. And we had a talk today about it, and they're really excited.
Is this Jessie?
It's Leanne McDonald and Leanne and so the conversation turned into something far bigger than we'd both sort of intended, because they've got a lot of stuff going on live. And I said, well, I'm more than happy to create the online side of things if you want, and you don't need to do anything. You just let me create, and then we sell that resource, and then you get a 50% cut. That way you generate money for you, but you don't put any time and effort into it.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't know I was going to say that, and I don't know whether it will happen or not. But here's what I noticed. I noticed that when I stopped searching for what I needed to do next, the answer just became very clear to me. And the thing is, Emma, you are the same as me. You are the same as somebody like Jamie Smart or Michael Neal, or we all have the capacity to create, innovate, because that is what we're built for. We're built for that. We're built to create. We're built to take the formless into the form. There is no bigger example than having a baby to show us that.
Yeah.
And that's the same energy that creates money, that creates businesses, that creates, it's the same energy. And you trusted your body to have 3 kids. Well, that says to me that you can trust yourself.
Oh yeah. And I try. The thing is there's something I come back to quite often when I'm when I'm seeing them as separate. It becomes complicated. When I bring them together, I think, well, hang on a minute. Like with all my children, from the beginning to obviously not the end because they're still here, but from conception to birth, I knew what I wanted, and I knew what I wanted to achieve, and I knew how I wanted things, and I even had disagreements with health professionals about the things that I wanted. And even though I had some elements of it, because I have my daughter at home, and I had some ego around just the typical kind of questions. This might go wrong. What if this? What if this? What if this? What if this? I just knew deep down I could do it. It wasn't about proving anything to anybody. I knew it was the right thing for us, and I knew I was safe. I knew that, in fact, actually, when I explained my experience about having my daughter at home, I was probably more safer than when I was in the hospital because of the type of care that I had and my awareness that I had before. I didn't just pluck this decision out of nowhere. I made sure I researched. I looked at what my body was capable of. I had experience. I knew enough about my informed choices, which isn't always given out to people. They're not always aware of this. They're not always aware of what they're capable of.
So is that
somehow, yet somehow, when it concerns me with business, I think it's something completely separate.
It's the same.
That is the biggest thing that's got in my way, is that I've even said this to people, just even the word business conjures up all kinds of crap in my head.
What if it doesn't have to be business, and what if it's like creative projects?
Yeah, and it's not even just the word business, it's the word coach as well. I get both business and coach. I get really about. It's weird.
Yeah, I know.
Somehow make it into something completely that it isn't.
Yeah, totally.
That's what makes it difficult.
I remember, and I know that the time is upon us, but just one last thing. I remember sitting at an event, and I used to have this thing where business was different, like it was the exception to the rule, right? Like everything else I seemed to sort of manifest, create in the way that I wanted, but the business side was very different. And I remember listening to someone about business and suddenly having this epiphany that it's just like cooking. It's just like cooking. It's one big experiment. Like whenever I open the fridge and okay, well, I don't have any recipe for this. I'm just going to make it up as I go along. Yeah. Pretty much like what I was doing in business is pretty much what I've been doing up until now anyway, right? And most of the people I talk to are pretty much in that same vein.
Yeah.
We can only really rely on insight to let us know what we're doing next. And the thing is that's the same for everybody. The only thing that gets in the way is that we have clarity in certain areas and other areas that we don't. So geniuses look to us like geniuses because they have clarity in that area. The more time you spend in the area that you're really freaked out about, the more clarity you will have. I have no idea how to build a house, but my ex-partner does, and he's the one now creating stuff for me here. Why? Because he has a shitload of clarity in that area. Why? Because he's been in the business of it for the last 20x years. Now, if you come to me to talk about clarity of mind, I can probably help you, but don't ask me to build a house.
No.
I mean, I could actually, I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot just by what he's been sharing with me. But if I got myself involved in that industry, in that business, then I would be pretty fucking grounded because I'm using it every day, right? Now, I have no idea about reflexology, but I'm sure that you're really grounded in the principles of reflexology and how to do that, right? Great. Now, business, finding clients, getting money in, it's all the same thing. It's all well, what if I did this? I don't know. I'm just going to see. What if I did this? I don't know. I'm just going to see. What if I did this? I don't know. I'm just going to see. Well, that didn't work. Oh, well, what's next? It's the same thing. It's just a massive, big experiment. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Do you like experimenting?
I've been experimenting. Yes, I have been. That's all I have done, really. And I think
some things work, some things don't.
And some things I've gone back to because I really didn't think and I've gone back to willingly, as in not as in, I went back to it because nothing else worked. It was because that was working absolutely fine and I thought I had to change it when I didn't. Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
those kind of scenarios.
And so that's amazing that you've seen that.
Yeah, when you think, why was I trying to make it more difficult?
Because once again, it comes back to the very simple thing of coming inside. And making that the priority above everything else. And coming back to the inside, because you know better than anybody how to run your own business. In the sense of insight, it may mean that you might have to have somebody else help you, support you, facilitate. But in terms of what's working for me right now is this. Okay, great. Well, let's stick with what works. What's not working? Well, that's not working. And it's just like, what's working, what's not working? What do I need to tweak? What do I need to, do I need to tweak anything? Where is my money coming from? Okay, that's interesting for me. Well, how can I up level that? You know, it's just, where is the money coming from? Where is the money flow coming from? How can I create more of the same thing? Has this been useful today?
Yeah, it really has. Yeah.
So what have you seen that's really helped you today, Emma?
The biggest thing I've seen is that element I was saying about when I think I need to change something and I don't. If that makes sense, you know, like I'm not saying I don't change anything, but like I know, like I'm actually going through training next week because as a sideline to my business, I'm also going to be doing self-employed work with the local advocacy service for young mothers.
Amazing.
In care, yeah. And I worked with children in care before, and I had I had a lot of experience with young mothers in care. Young women, and then they went off to become mothers. But I know that it's definitely an area where I feel quite connected to, because I know that many of them don't have the support that I had. You know, a lot of the carers and support workers are paid, which I will be as well, but there's just so vulnerable. You know, 7 out of 10, I think, have their children removed.
Well, it sounds to me like you know exactly which direction you want to go in.
Yeah, and obviously I want to continue with my reflexology and take that into workplaces. And I do know what I want to do. I think I just was trying to fast track it. I was trying to control when it happens and how it happens. And that was when I went right off track, because I no longer was caring about what I was doing. I was focusing more
on the money
side of, I wasn't focusing on being where I was in that moment. I was focusing about everything else on the outside, the past and the future. It was literally the two opposite ends.
That's kind of what I was hearing at the beginning of the call, is like, I'm in
all that and all that.
Right? And now it's kind of like, no, I know exactly where I'm going. I know exactly the clarity I have. In fact, it's been clear all along. I just forgot.
Yeah, and the thing is because it's something I've got to go through quite extensive training for. I've had to invest into all of this. I was worrying about the money again, thinking, is it worth my investment? Can I really do this? Really listen to yourself. Is this what you want, or are you doing it because you just want to make money? And when I actually sit and listen, I'm like, no, I want to help these people.
I can really hear that.
I want to help these people more, because I know I'm happy with the work that I do, where obviously I charge people and they pay me. I know they're capable of that. These definitely aren't. And unfortunately, I don't have enough time to just give a lot of time to it. So I'm glad that I'm being paid, not via them, but I'm being paid by somebody else, just to make sure I can cover myself, so I can be there and invest in myself to do this, because this isn't going to be a cheap process. But
what I'm hearing is that's the same energy that you came to your birth, your child's birth.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hearing. Like, I'm really hearing that.
Yeah.
I'm really hearing that you're fired up about it and your clarity around it, and that's where you want to go. That's what I'm really hearing. And that's all we can know for now.
Yeah. And I was talking to Anka the other day, and she said the same to me about when she was asking me some questions, and I said I was trying to reach people too far away from me as well, because I'm really grounded where I am, where I live. That's one of the reasons why I went for that job as well, was because I know there are kids here in my area. I didn't grow up here. I grew up somewhere completely different, but this is my home. And I really love where I live. I live in Caerphilly in South Wales, and I've never felt this connected to somewhere. It's one of those, I love my home so much that I want to come home. You know, I know when I've had enough and I want to come home. I like having space where I can leave, but I want to come home. I never felt like that when I was growing up to where I grew up in. I never imagined. I haven't forced this upon myself. I feel that here. So I've noticed that actually when I'm talking passionately, I know that I was trying so hard to reach people all across the world, and actually I only want to reach people here.
For now,
I feel that, my my purpose, one of a better word, for now has been to really kind of home in on what's necessary for my community.
Beautiful. Well, you're pretty clear.
Yeah.
You're no longer in transition. You're actually
out. I'm birthed.
You've just birthed the journey. So well done, you. We've gone from transition into birthing the journey.
Yeah.
In a matter of a minute.
It can be like that.
It can be like that. And I really hear you. So, Emma, thank you so much for coming on today. It was such a pleasure. Now, if anybody wants to contact you, how can they do that?
I don't have a website at this present moment. However, you can certainly find me on Facebook.
Okay, great.
So it's Emma Burns.
Cool. Yes.
So there's me, and then there's my page, which is Emma Burns Soulfully You. I am on Instagram. I am on LinkedIn as well. But as you can gather, I've been a little bit unsure about what I want to do, so I've not put a web page together, but that's something that's in the pipe.
Well, it sounds like you actually know exactly what you want to do.
I do. It's taken me a while. And this is it. This has been something that's been off and on for a long time, and I've just felt in the last couple of weeks what's happened has been like the that's it now. This is, you do know it. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know.
Yeah.
I do know. So thank you so much, Emma. And we'll put the link in the show notes so that people can actually get in contact with you if they need to.
Fabulous. Thank you.
So this week I wanted to share that I'm launching an amazing course called Manifesting Miracles 2020 with the beautiful Ian Watson. After realizing that manifesting was a really hot topic from the amount of downloads that we got from how to manifest anything that you want on this series, we decided to club together and use our 34 years of experience to create a 6-week on live course for you to create one thing that you want to bring into your life. So anything from relationship to money to client, anything that you have thought to be totally impossible to create in your life, then we're going to give you the space to be able to do that. Now, who's it for? Well, it's for you if you've been striving and struggling to make that one thing happen. We're also going to get you clarity on what that is for you. Plus, by the end of the course, you would have manifested something of your heart's desires that you might have thought that was totally and utterly bonkers crazy that you never thought you'd be able to do. So if this sounds like something that you're interested in, and even, if you've read my book, you'll know that there's a chapter dedicated towards this, and you want to be able to manifest and make 2020 that miraculous year for you, then join me and Ian. If that sounds like something you want to be part of, then email me at marina@marinapearson.com, putting the subject line Manifesting Miracles, and then in the body just ask me for more info and we'll take it from there. Hope to see you soon. And there we have it, another amazing episode of The Joy of Being. Until the next time, remember, you are the joy you seek.